Hello, I'm Chris Williams from Read Comics They're Bad For You, the name of my YouTube channel. Or if you're watching this on BitChute, the name of my BitChute channel is Comic Freak. Be sure to subscribe to both channels if you have the chance. News about Star Trek Discovery. Apparently, one of their writers has quit on them, and apparently, well, in the words of some people, they said that he's acting like the classic disgruntled employee. But then again, how many disgruntled employees make an up-end article in the New York Times? Why I Quit the Writer's Room by Walter Mosley. Mr. Mosley is a novelist and a screenwriter who's been in the industry for over 30 years. And in his words under the title of this article, the worst thing you can do to citizens of a democracy is silence them. Too true, my friend. Even though I think you and me are on odds at the political spectrum, we can get along on that particular statement. And his article goes as this. Earlier this year, I had just finished with the Snowfall writer's room for the season when I took a similar job on a different show at a different network. I'd been in the new room for a few weeks when I got the call from Human Resources. A pleasant-sounding young man said, "Mr. Mosley, it has been reported that you used the N-word in the writer's room." I replied, "I am the N-word in the writer's room." He said very nicely that I could not use that word except in a script. I could write it, but I could not say it. Me, a man whose people in America have been, among other things, slandered by many words, but I could no longer use that particular word to describe the invariance of my experience. It's funny, him being called by Human Resources by a guy with a pleasant-sounding voice is almost a stereotype from a TV show in and of itself. The article continues with, "I have to stop with the forward thrust of this story to say that I had indeed said the word in the room. I hadn't called anyone it. I just told a story about a cop who explained to me on the streets of Los Angeles that he stopped all N-words in Patty neighborhoods and all Patties in N-word neighborhoods because they were usually up to no good. I was telling a true story as I remembered it." Someone in the room, I have no idea who, called HR and said that my use of the word made them uncomfortable, and the HR representative called to inform me that such language was unacceptable to my employers. I couldn't use that word in common parlance, even to express an experience I lived through. Oh, for the love of God, you mean this guy imparting his vast wisdom of the experiences he lived through in his life that have made him who he is and, well, that have served him well over the last 30 years inside of the movie business of itself? You mean he can't tell of the various experiences that led him up to being a writer and screenwriter? Continuing with Walter's story, there I was, a black man in America who shares with millions of others the history of racism, and more often than not treated as subhuman if addressed at all. That history had to be rendered in words my employers regarded as acceptable. There I was, being chastised for criticizing the word that oppressed me and mine for centuries. As far as I know, the word is in the dictionary. As far as I know, the Constitution and Declaration of Independence assures me of both the freedom of speech and the pursuit of happiness. I'm going to have to say sorry to Walter Mosley here. When he says about his experiences as being, well, treated as a subhuman, usually when I hear those words it comes from SJWs, both white and black. And usually those people are too young to ever have experienced such things. Now, coming from an experienced and, well, older writer as well as man as Walter Mosley, I tend to stop and listen because he actually might have something to say. But usually when I hear someone use those words, it's coming from SJW, so I usually just tune it out. So let's listen to what Mr. Mosley has to say. How can I exercise these freedoms when my place of employment tells me that my job is on the line if I say a word that makes somebody, an unknown person, uncomfortable? There's all kinds of language that makes me uncomfortable. Half the utterances of my president, for instance, some people's sexual habits and desires, but I have no rights whatsoever to tell anyone what they should and should not cherish or express. A few years ago, when a group of my peers said that they support outlawing the Confederate flag, I demurred. Don't get me wrong, I have no warm and fuzzy feelings about that flag, but I do know that all Americans have the right of self-expression. Also, if someone has that flag in their mind, I'd prefer to see it on their front porch too. It's a shame that Walter Mosley quit from being on Star Trek Discovery. He sounds like one of the few talented and, well, legitimately sane writers that they would have on that show. But I can't blame him for quitting. I'd quit too if I were on Star Trek Discovery, because of all the things on it, it has nothing to do with canon, and that they insist on inserting their agendas in it. I can't believe it that he would even, well, someone like Walter Mosley would want to even work on that show. Continuing onward, I do not believe that it should be the object of our political culture to silence those things said that makes some people uncomfortable. Of course, I'm not talking about verbal attacks or harassment, but if I have an opinion, a history, a word that explains better than anything how I feel, then I also have the right to express that feeling or that word without threat of losing my job. And furthermore, I do not believe that it is the province of HR to make the decision to keep my accuser's identity secret. If I've said or done something bad enough to cause people to fear me, they should call the police. Yes, and he hasn't done anything bad. He's only expressed his own opinion and told a story that has happened to him. He told only the truth. And that's the requisite for this. Telling the truth can get you in trouble. And that shouldn't happen, especially in America. My answer to HR was to resign and move on. I was in a writer's room trying to be creative while at the same time being serviled by unknown critics who would snitch on me to a disembodied voice over the phone. My every word would be scrutinized. Sooner or later, I'd be fired or worse, silenced. I'm a fortunate guy. Not everyone can quit their job, but beyond that, we cannot be expected to thrive in a culture where our every word is monitored. If my words physically threaten or bully someone, something must be done about it. But if you tell me that you feel uncomfortable at some word I utter, let me say this. And I can't wait to hear what he has to say next. Well, is it going to be good or is it going to be SJW? Let's sit and read what Mr. Walter Mosley has to say about his experiences dealing with SJWs and being told what he can and cannot say. We continue with, there was a time in America when so-called white people were uncomfortable to have a black person sitting next to them. There was a time when people felt uncomfortable when women demanded the right to vote. There was a time when sexual orientation only had one meaning and everything else was a crime. The worst thing you can do to citizens of a democratic nation is to silence them. And the easiest way to silence a woman or a man is to threaten his or her livelihood. Let's not accept the McCarthyism of secret condemnation. Instead, let's delve a little deeper, limiting the power that can be exerted over our citizens, their attempts to express their hearts and horrors, and their desire to speak their truths. Only this can open the dialogue of change. These are good words heard from a talented writer, and he is right. You can't just expect people to be silenced and not be able to express their words. If you want people to, well, be writers for you and make the stuff you would like to turn into film and TV shows, you can't expect this man to be quiet. He wants to tell his side of the story. He wants to tell what he experienced. And this comes through in his own writings and probably in the TV shows he's worked on. But then you have all these people, the SJWs, who come in and tell you, no, you cannot say that word. You can only write it. Oh, I can only write it. Am I like a 3 or 4-year-old? Or maybe a 10-year-old, someone who can write? I can't say it. Tell me, do I also have to worry about if I pass notes in class? Well, if I'm caught, will I have to go up front and have to face the wrath of the teacher who's teaching the class? Because this is what it feels like with SJWs. And this is why they need to be driven out of our favorite properties and genres. If you like this video, subscribe. Make sure you're still subscribed because YouTube is going around unsubscribing people. So make sure you are still subscribed. If you're watching my videos but you have not subscribed, please just subscribe to me. Subscribe to me on YouTube at Read Comics They're Bad For You. Then go over to BitChute and subscribe to my BitChute channel, Comic Freak. Hit that bell for notifications, hit that like button, and leave some comments down below. And could you also please share this video, share it on Twitter and share it on Facebook, because YouTube is also not promoting their creators shares videos anymore, and it would really help me if you could please share this video. Keep checking back in future videos for more information on my own upcoming independent comic book, Scumdogs. I'm Chris Williams, and I'll be back again tomorrow with another video or review.